Shalom, and welcome to Keeping the Shul Lights On, a podcast about the challenges of operating a synagogue, creating a Jewish community, and the hard work and efforts of a congregation's executive director and Jewish organizational leadership. Brought to you by Shul Marketing. Concerned your congregation and community are not responding to your Shul marketing? Discover the strategies to connect with them, reach them where they are, and develop the results your leadership is seeking. Here is your host, Howard Walpoff.
Welcome to Keeping the Shul Lights On. I'm Howard Walpoff, your host. This is brought to you by shulmarketing.com. And we are here to talk about synagogue life from the eyes of the synagogue executive director and the aspects that they go through on a daily basis to really run a shul, to make sure that the lights are on, to make sure that business is functioning, that members are getting the information they need, services are happening, and all the different types of programming that you see at your own synagogue on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. So we have a guest with us today. He's an executive director at the Community Synagogue in Port Washington, New York. His name is Jeff Rembrandt. And Jeff, welcome to our conversation today.
Thanks. Glad to be here today. Looking forward.
Well, we're very glad to have you and very excited to learn about you and your background because you've been involved in the Jewish world for quite a while. So how and why did you decide to get started in this as a career path?
I was born to be a Jewish professional. I was raised in a family that was very involved in the local Jewish community in Cleveland, members of our temple, involved in the Jewish Federation, all kinds of things. My father was the president of the Brotherhood and the treasurer of the synagogue. My mother taught drama at the Hebrew school. I was the youth group president for a couple of years, involved in NIFTY, went to Jewish day camp and summer camp. Even when I was in college, I came back and worked often as an advisor to my old, high school youth group. But it's just been part of my nature, and there was no doubt that I was going to end up some way active in the Jewish community. At that time, I didn't just know it wasn't going to be a professional way. It could have also been an active volunteer. But after college, I took a job as a salesperson in the wholesale floral industry, actually, and didn't get any satisfaction out of that job. Found a job at the Jewish Community Center in Cleveland, and been pretty much working for Jewish organizations and ever since. I got a master's in social work administration and have just made my career working to better the Jewish community.
It really is a wonderful path, and obviously starting as a shul kid and having the different activities that you saw from your parents and the things that you were involved with, there really is that wonderful sense of community, not just in the synagogue, but also those other entities. The JCCs from all around the country really do a great job of extending that and really running great programs and good community involvement. And there's a comfort of being in that setting on a regular basis, as opposed to, it's very different than a general office setting wherever else you might be working.
Mm-hmm. The self-satisfaction that I get out of being a Jewish professional is better than I could have probably found doing anything else. I have always loved going to work. I always love knowing that I'm making the Jewish community stronger even in my little area, and that's a point of pride. I could probably be, like most executive directors, I'll tell you, we could probably be earning 3 times as much in the corporate world doing similar work. But I don't do this work because it pays great. I do this work because I want to make sure that the Jewish community survives and thrives.
Yes, the kind of work you do really encompasses a lot of different aspects. And it really is, especially when you're dealing with different sizes of congregations in general, you're really dealing with a lot of individuals, a lot of programming, a lot of wear and tear on the building. And it really gives you avenues of work that would be perhaps individualized within the working world somewhere else, but it really makes a very large position that you come to on a daily basis.
Yeah, most of us are jacks of all trades, masters of most. And it depends on any given day. I'm actually, I have my final budget approval meeting tonight, which is pretty common that we have a finance committee and executive directors along with the treasurer help draft a draft budget. Tonight I get the final approval of the finance from the finance committee before it goes to the board. But at the same time, I'm overseeing an installation of new security cameras today, and my computer consultant was in to help with some network issues. And we're having deliveries brought from a big food order I placed yesterday because we have a big program coming in this weekend. So I had to place an order with a food vendor for us. And we have preschool going on with our director taking off for a couple of days to speak at a conference and our assistant director having been gone for a week and a half in Israel. So today's the transition day. We have to get caught up on a bunch of stuff. It's something different every day. And but it all leads to a smooth running business aspect. It's the stuff that most members, unless you're like a board member, don't know that goes on here and doesn't see this. We're the back of the house kind of people. They don't see what's going on, what keeps this building floating, or what you said, let's say, keeps the shul lights on. Most people never see it.
Yeah, there's so many aspects to it, and it's really key that you say the word that it's a business, because you really have to run it as a business to have so many different aspects of. It's not just services, as you talked about. You have a school, you have events that catering's involved. There's obviously other things that get involved with rentals that are coming in and out of the building when it comes to some of those events. It's a lot of management of people and management of a very significant day-to-day schedule to make sure all these pieces are moving smoothly.
That's correct. It's we have, we're often juggling a lot of programs and services and vendors and rentals, and the ECC needs the space and the religious school needs the space, and keeping a balanced calendar is, well, it's a headache, truthfully. But we're often juggling a lot of things, and luckily we have a pretty tough maintenance staff that can turn a room around in 20 minutes from a lecture for 2,000 people into a classroom for 50, and just hustle up and move chairs and move tables and get it set back up. There's been many days that I have to pitch in moving chairs and tables as well just to get done in time. And most executive directors have had to do that at one point or another. So, but it's a fine balancing act, and it is a business. A lot of folks, come to me and say, "Why are you asking me to pay more money to be a member of the synagogue?" And I say, "Well, we're a business. No, you're not. You're a synagogue." And I said, "Well, yes, we're a synagogue, but I'm concerned about the business end of the business. I don't get involved in what the clergy do on the bima, other than make sure their microphones work and the lights are on. But what they do and say on the bima and religious observances, I have nothing to do with. But making sure that everyone gets paid every week, and we have a pretty large staff. We probably issue over 100 paychecks most pay periods, for including all of our religious school teachers and everybody else, and making sure that the cash is available to do that, and making sure that I can pay the electric bill and the gas bill and maintenance costs and security costs and everything else that no one really thinks about at a synagogue except those of us that are responsible for making sure it happens. So it is.
Yes.
We have to run it like a business.
Sometimes those that are involved, really, there's too much going on that they can visualize of all the different pieces. That's probably they yearn for the day that they didn't know about the things going on in the background and their involvement with it. But it really is, there's a lot of factors that go into making the business run, especially when you have so many events scheduled on a daily, weekly basis. And it's look, you're in the people business. So you're dealing a lot
Right.
with personalities on a regular basis. Some of them are the members, some of them are vendors and other pieces that go along with these events. And you have, I think it's great that you have that degree to really work with people, because is similar-ish, I'll say, to the rabbi. You deal with a lot of challenges that individuals are having within their lives, and you are the
Right.
person that they talk to in a similar but different way than with the rabbi.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of times our relationships with our members vary from individual to individual. And um, I'm dealing with a family right now that will remain nameless, of course, but they're in the process of separating. Unfortunately, they have some young children. They're trying to figure out who's going to stay a member, who's going to pay the bill, who's going to take care of tuition for early childhood program. And luckily, I have that social work background, so I can reach out to these people in a more relatable fashion than some people who would just call up and say, "Pay your bill," or "We need to make this happen," or whatever it is. And so, yeah, we're able to be a little more human, have a little more humanness in our approach to our members. Um, and we do. We have everybody in the building has different members that they relate to. Everyone from our receptionist, our maintenance crew, our clergy, our educators. We all work very hard. I'm working here at the Community Synagogue, and we take our middle name of community very importantly, and we want to make sure that everybody feels comfortable as part of their community. And so that's really our main focus here, and we work very hard to make sure that our community is strong.
Now, was that part of your thought process when you went back for that degree?
Well, actually, when I was first working at the Cleveland Jewish Community Center, and the executive director took me out to lunch one day and said, "Jeff, you want to try to make a career in JCC world?" And at the time, I said, "Sure." He said, "Well, then you need to get a master's in social work," which was the degree that, okay, this was, 40 years ago. Um, but that was the degree that most professionals who were looking to have administrative positions in social service agencies would get back then. Uh, Shortly afterwards, programs started coming out in these universities of, MBAs for nonprofit management, which was a very similar degree, just mine was focused in the School of Social Work and how to manage a nonprofit rather than in the business field and how to manage a nonprofit.
Yes.
Because no business schools ran those programs at the time. And so I went and took his advice and got the degree. Well, my wife was in rabbinic school at the time. I was in graduate school. We had a kid. I worked full time at the Jewish Community Center in Cincinnati. It was a hectic time, but we were able to make it through, and it's been my starting point, my push off ever since. So it's great.
Well, it's great that it really worked the way that it should. Yes, and over the course of the last number of decades, not so many, but the higher places of education have come up with these different types of degrees to help people as they move on into these different positions. But yes, during that time, a lot of people were getting the social work degree, but really does answer a lot of the issues that you deal with on a regular basis to help people.
Absolutely.
And to really develop that community. That's the middle name of your shul.
Right, exactly. It's a strong part of what I do, and I feel great that I have this. I have a clinical background as well in social work, besides just the management piece, because we had to study that and had to serve clients. And I feel good when I can use some of these human relationship techniques that I wouldn't necessarily get to use if I was necessarily in the corporate world. But here I can use some of this, and sometimes we talk about social working our members, and it's not a derogatory term. It's really about being helpful to them and being focused on the fact that we are their house of worship. We're their synagogue, and we need to make sure that everybody feels comfortable coming to the synagogue, that they have chosen to be part of.
Yes, everyone has their different way they possess the synagogue in some ways, the way they appreciate the synagogue in some ways, because it's not the same relationship they have with other places.
Nope,
They may
not.
be an alumni of a school and had a great relationship going to that school, but it's not the same as being a member of the synagogue and the different interactions that you have and how you think about the place.
Right. Some people, a lot of people like to try and compare us to their gym membership, right? They buy a gym membership, they go to the gym 3 times a week, and then it drags off to 1 time a week, and then it's like once a month, like everybody. But they keep paying their gym membership, even though they're not always using it as much as they would like, but they pay their gym membership. So I get people who try and compare us to their gym membership, and they say, look, I pay a membership, and I may not come in more than, let's face it, we have plenty of members who come in twice a year for Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. But they keep rejoining every year. They look at it. The difference is that people look at the gym membership as a fee for service that they feel they should be paying for. And more and more people are continuing to look at their affiliation with their synagogue as more of sometimes let's call it an obligation that people feel they need to be part of the Jewish community. There are plenty of folks who think we're a fee-for-service organization as well. Don't get me wrong. They pay for preschool, and they keep their membership up and pay for religious school so their kids can have a b'nai mitzvah, become b'nai mitzvah at their 13th year. And then they drop out because they got what they needed. And that's not uncommon in today's American world.
Absolutely.
But there are still a number of people who want to be part of the Jewish community, and being part of their synagogue is a good way for them to do that. They feel that connection. They feel that warmth. They feel that strength of community. And they may not step in the building more than twice a year, and maybe they didn't step in for the past 3 years because of COVID. But they're still members. They still participate. They maybe watch our live stream services. They maybe they just read our emails and know what's going on and find out who in the synagogue had a new baby and who's passed away and all those life cycle things that we share with our community. And for them, that's good enough, whatever their connection is. But they want to stay connected to the Jewish community, and we need to make sure that they have the place to be there to do that.
Yeah, it's rare that you find the gym that has that life cycle announcements that a synagogue has. So some of the comparisons start to drop off at that point. But you brought up COVID, and COVID was a challenging time for synagogues, for executive directors, for clergy, because of the isolation and because of the initial lockdowns. And how did your synagogue address that? And what kind of, I guess, challenges or positive pieces have come out now we're looking at 3 years later from this experience?
Well, we stumbled into it like the whole rest of the world. When all of a sudden we decided to shut down the building in March of 2020, we said, oh, we'll probably be out for a week or two. Like everybody in the world said, this will probably just be a short thing. And next thing we know, it's growing and growing and growing. And everybody had that experience. I live nearby the synagogue, and frankly, I came to work almost the whole time during the shutdown because there were 2 other people in my apartment, but I can come to the synagogue and not have too many people around. Actually, nobody. So I was here most of the shutdown, and during isolation, I was still isolated, but just in my office instead of at home. And that worked best for me. I actually don't work from home very well. I need to come to work, and I'm old school that way. And then eventually a couple of cantors started coming into work, and the ECC director started coming into work. So eventually there was like 3 of us working in this building that normally has 100 people working in it every week. But we all managed to accomplish what we needed to do. The big issues were, how do you maintain your connection for our membership while the building was closed. And we realized that, our connection to our members is not just about the building, but there is this emotional connection that I was kind of talking about earlier about people wanting to be affiliated with their community. And during COVID, I think people need to be affiliated with their community even stronger. So more and more people started looking for ways to make that connection. And, we started like everybody else. When the clergy were isolated at home, we figured out a way to use Zoom to push our services from the clergy's living room at home to whatever members wanted to participate. We stopped paper mailings and everything moved to electronic communication, because there was no one here. I mean, okay, I did come in and print some statements and take them to the post office, but in most cases, there was no one here to print the newsletter and fold it and stuff it and get it to the post office. So we switched over to electronic, like many. And, we started with Zoom services from the clergy's home, and we'd have a author event where the author would Zoom in from their home somewhere, wherever they were, and do an author lecture. And we tried to digitize as much content as we could. In fact, the first year for the High Holy Days, we actually pre-recorded the services because we didn't know how it was going to work. So we brought in a video company with an editor, and we pre-recorded all the services with the clergy up on the bema. The rabbis our senior rabbi would change his tie in between takes of the morning service and the next day's service, so it looked like he changed clothes, but they all wore their holiday robes anyway. And then come Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, the only people in the building were actually me and my marketing person. We were here making sure that the stream was running properly, that it was tape. Until now, when all of a sudden people are going to start listening, because not everybody knew it was pre-recorded. The board knew, but many of our members probably didn't know. The next year, we actually were able to stream in place. The second year, we still did not have a very big crowd, and everybody had to be vaccinated and had to wear masks. And we put up these big plexiglass partitions around the podiums for the rabbi and the cantor to stand on behind. And we had a small crowd, but people are starting to come back. Now that we've gone through our third year of High Holy Day post-COVID world this past September, we had a not quite the enrollment the participation we had seen in pre-COVID life, but we started to have a nice turnout come back in. We still live stream everything, every Shabbat service, every Erev Shabbat service, all the holidays, whatever we do, we still live stream, and we still get a nice live streaming crowd. We actually invested in a stronger live streaming system. We went from a 1-camera system to a 4-camera system, and had a new audio system put into the building, so that our digital presence would be stronger. But we are happily seeing more and more people finally coming back into the building. We do have a couple of things. That's one of the things that, we call, and many people call, a COVID keeper. We learned in COVID that live streaming was very valuable, although we had been streaming for a long time, but no one really used it. And so we improved our live stream to continue to grow with it. We learned that, and a couple other things, the way our religious school ran had to change. It went virtual for a whole year, and then it went partially virtual. And we're staying partially virtual because we found that some of the programs, especially for the older kids, the 7th graders, the post-bar mitzvah kids, 8th graders, some of those programs work better virtually because some kids have very busy life schedules, and they can run home from soccer practice and get on the virtual class when they couldn't necessarily do that walking into the building at the same speed. So there's plenty of those components that we've kept in place. And as well, we actually had the first year of COVID, we actually had a very successful fundraising program. uh, doing a COVID campaign to help defray the cost of those folks who were not working and not earning, but wanted to continue to maintain their membership. And so some of our donors, in fact, many of our people in our community stepped up to be supportive of their fellow community partners to help defray some of those expenses that people who weren't earning for a year. And almost everybody's back to work. There's still a few people who aren't earning, but we're able to continue to come and to enjoy the synagogue even virtually. So it was a very strong program. We were very happy to have it.
Well, it's great that you're able to negotiate through all of that. I know lots of different visuals and memories from the experience. I know the second day of Rosh Hashanah in 2020, there was 15 of us in the sanctuary running services on with the live stream, which is a memory I will never forget of when you think of Rosh Hashanah being a packed, extended room, and it was just a few of us. So it's different ways that synagogues had to function to make sure that people were able to participate in services that way. And it's great that you've learned from things and be able to expand from it. Now, if someone came to you and was curious about the things you do, what's one thing that you can say that people would be shocked that you have as your responsibility on a daily basis or a regular basis?
I think the thing that surprises most people on a regular basis is I give tours of our facility. So our facility is the original part of our building when we bought it. It was an old Gold Coast, Long Island, Gatsby area mansion. And it was built by a woman what her real name is Betty Holmes, but her maiden name was Fleischman. So like the Fleischman yeast guys. So
Okay.
she had plenty of resources to build a beautiful home. And so when we bought the building, we've since done a couple of additions to it. But so we have this historic building, and I feel a strong obligation, as well as many of other people, that we maintain the history of this building. Once a month, I do tours open to the public. We meet on a Sunday, and I just did it this past weekend, and we had, I think, 16 people who signed up. I partner with an outside vendor who sells the tour, but that vendor pays the synagogue, so that the synagogue makes a little bit of money, and I get to do a great tour and do historical research on the building that we're located in. That's something I wouldn't be able to do if it was just a modern, 1970s built building. Sure. But most people find that's a big surprise that I study the history of our building and the history of the owners of the building and what the contents were, and I dig up old pictures and give tours once a month. That's one of the things that generally is the most surprising, but that's because we have a unique facility. I think what most people don't realize is how much goes into keeping the lights on. And most people think, well, I come for services and the building's open. And then if someone says, hey, Jeff, what do you do? Right? So every once in a while I come to someone who says, what do you do? And I start to run through a typical day, which I wish I can tell you right now, there's no such thing as a typical day. Mm-hmm. But, it varies from working with members to make sure that they're comfortable in the way they are affiliated with the synagogue. Also chasing some members who decided they just wanted to ignore their monthly statements. And there's some of that comes every day too. And working with the security crew to make sure that we are a safe and secure facility as we can be, which is an unfortunate part of my job. Yes. That we have to be worried about physical security, but I have security guards and procedures in place and parking passes to make sure all the families who bring them to preschool have, so I know it's an official car on the property, and little things that I can't go in a whole lot of detail about, but probably I spend it would probably average out to maybe 30% of my time dealing with security issues nowadays. then making sure that the departments are not overspending their budget allotment, and because I have to make sure I'm balanced at the end of the year.
True.
And we have in years past, as many synagogues have, run a deficit from our operating income to our operating expenses in any given year. And hopefully we have enough money in the bank to cover the bills, which we've been lucky to have. We're working on increasing our endowment funds right now so that in the future we can have a sizable endowment that will put off a good amount of income to help defray some of those costs. But right now we don't have an endowment that large. It's not putting off any resources. But constantly looking at that, we're moving money around in banks. We're reinvesting in certificates of deposit. I mean, everything that you can imagine that you would do in your normal business out there has to be done for the synagogue as well. And we do it every day.
Yeah, it really is a multi-aspect position, and you're dealing with a lot of different skills that would be just one line item in someone's job description: the security professional, finance manager, CFO, and you're dealing with all these pieces, and it really does bring you a lot of different types of experiences that you have day to day within the congregation that people don't see, but also things that you enjoy and things that you reminisce on, and that you were able to achieve, hitting budgets and keeping the place safe, and also having experiences of these wonderful events that go on within the walls. Now,
there's nothing more satisfying than talking with the B'nai Mitzvah family after their child became B'nai Mitzvah one weekend, and I call them the next week just to say how everything went, and to find that they're the happiest they've been in years, that they love their synagogue, and they can't believe how well their child did and how great the clergy took care of them. And then they say, but who are you? And if they didn't have to, go through many of the members, if they're not on the leadership or a problem member, let's call it, right? Someone who's having issues, they have no idea. They just see my name somewhere, but I can walk in our neighborhood grocery store and people don't know who I am by face. Not, our rabbi can't do that. He walks into the grocery store and people start mobbing him, asking him questions. I think I mentioned my wife was a rabbi at one of her towns where we were in a congregation years ago. People would look in my shopping basket and see what the rabbi eats. And it was always a little bit intrusive, but now no one looks in my shopping cart to see what Jeff eats, because we're a congregation of about 800 families, and my face is probably not known to 600 of them, maybe even more. But they know my name, and they're happy that the synagogue is open and running when they need it, and they don't care really why or who's doing it. They just want to make sure it's here when they need it. And that's my goal, to make sure we're here for the people, whether they know me or not. So.
And sometimes it's good to be anonymous, so that's a good thing.
It's often good to be anonymous, especially we live in a town where everybody knows everybody's business. So
exactly.
And it's good to not be recognized necessarily when I go into the Stop and Shop.
So, Jeff, to wind down, and I really appreciate your time in talking to me, because really you have a great experience in the things that you do and what you deal with on a day-to-day basis. Why don't you share with us just something about your synagogue? What makes your synagogue so special?
Well, I think everybody thinks their synagogue is special. I really think there's two things that make us unique amongst our community. And one is that our focus really is on that middle name, community, and Community Synagogue. we try to make sure that every one of our 800 units of membership has a personal connection to the synagogue, whether it's with one of the clergy people, whether it's with an educator or a teacher or the preschool director or someone in the office. We try very hard to make sure that not everybody wants that kind of a connection, but we reach out to everybody. Every new family that joins the synagogue gets a call from, I have a volunteer actually, her title is membership concierge. And she calls the new families and says, hey, let's find you a sponsor family. So we give them like an assigned friend at the synagogue. And the sponsor family invites them to family programs and family events and things like that. The structure is we try to make it close to their new members' family structure as possible. We do a number of new member events throughout the year so the new members get a chance to meet each other, because most of the time if we're getting new members is because they just moved to the community. Sometimes it's people who've grown into their membership finally, but most often it's people who just moved to the community. And as a bedroom community of New York City, where up until like last month, we were the only train line, the Port Washington train line, that ran straight into Manhattan. We go right to Penn Station from Port Washington. Now, of course, they've opened up some lines to the new Grand Central, and
Yes,
if anybody's from the metropolitan New York area knows, Long Island Railroad is a little disarray right now. They'll fix it. But for the longest time, we were the only direct train line, so we got a lot of people from the city moving out to the suburbs and moving here. And we work very hard to make that community strong. The other piece that I think is so great for our synagogue and that makes us a little special, our senior rabbi and our cantor both started together here in the community synagogue 20 years ago. And they've been here for 20 years working together, the two of them, from the day one. And we've had an assistant or an associate rabbi also most of the time. They turn over. We're adding a third rabbi and a second cantor right now. We hired them. They'll be starting in July. And we have a team focus approach to how we all work with our membership and manage the synagogue, to the point where it's probably not seen so much outside, but inside, the feeling of being part of a team of professionals is superior. And I've worked in a lot of places, and with a lot of places that said they did team building and teamwork amongst their staff, but everybody from our 3-hour-a-week Hebrew school teacher to the senior rabbi feels like they're part of our community's team. And we work very hard to make sure we do that. And I think it pays out in spades with the way the staff feel as part of the community as well, which helps make that relationship with our community members that much stronger. I think that's what makes us most unique.
well, thank you so much for sharing that. Obviously, a lot of that has to do with your leadership as executive director. So it's really wonderful, the experience that you, the community, your congregants have at your synagogue. And we hope that goes on for a very long time. So Jeff, thank you so much for joining us for this conversation and for everything you shared.
Let me hang up on this phone call. I appreciate I appreciate you reaching out to me. I'm happy to share this conversation and speak to anybody in the community. I will just, for you listeners out there, it's if you're thinking about getting into the Jewish community profession, do it. You will find a great wealth of joy and excitement in your life, and you will feel strong. I feel it's very part of my role to make sure that there are other Jewish professionals coming behind me. I've been doing it for a long time, and as much as I'd like to, I can't probably do it forever, but put another good 10, 20 years in or something like that. But young people, if you're listening, or if you know someone encourage them to become a Jewish communal professional. And if someone really wants to, they can always find me at the Community Synagogue in Port Washington. It's not like my email or my phone number is secret, and call and say they're interested to know about it, and I'll be more than happy to talk with them.
Well, thank you for that, Jeff, and thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you. It's been my pleasure. Have a nice day.
And thank you all for joining us as well. It really is, there's so many things that go into running a synagogue, and a lot of it are things that you never think about, you never see, but these are important factors in really helping build the community. It's so these events can happen, so services can take place, so the lights are on when you come and get there. So definitely appreciate what you have within your community, and there's definitely people to reach out to if you're looking to find a different community. But go out and have a great rest of today, and we will see you next time.